decimals. This is the first lesson in our next chapter, chapter 3, which is rational numbers. So what I'd like you to do is open up your workbook to page 264. And we're going to start with this chart where we're going to talk about writing fractions as decimals. Now, this first problem has the fraction 7/10. And if you look at, is my marker going to work? There we go. If you look at the word tenths, that word tenths should let you know what this denominator is going to be in your fraction. And back in, oh gosh, 3rd and 4th grade, you were taught how to place value of numbers when you were talking about decimals, and then in 4th grade when you were talking about fractions. So you have to be able to take the fraction and the word form of the word, and convert that into a fraction form of the word. And you really need to do that if you have or knowledge of that place value chart. So if you're not familiar with that, you really do need to come and see me so that I can help you with that. That is something that you should remember back from 3rd and 4th grade. And I can't help you with that and give you a little refresher of that. I'm not going to take the time to do that right now because the majority of you should remember that. So tenths means your denominator is going to be a 10. That 7 then tells you what your numerator would be. Then you look at this fraction and then you can say, okay, what is that going to be as a decimal? Because that tenths, if you close your eyes and if you say 7/10, that is also the decimal 7/10, or 0.7. 1900ths, and that's why it's really important sometimes to say decimals as they're supposed to be said. 1900ths, that hundredths lets you know that the denominator here should be 100, and you should be filling this in your workbook. That hundredths lets you know that the denominator is going to be 100, and that 19 then should go on top as your numerator. Then, if you go over here to create your decimal, 1900ths would mean that it should be 2 spots beyond your decimal point in the hundredths place, so it would be 0.19. 105 thousandths would mean that your denominator then would be 1,000. Okay? And my numerator then, 105, would go on top. Now we have to write that as a decimal. Thousandths is 3 spots beyond the decimal point. So that numerator 105 now goes after your decimal just like that. Okay? So that should really help you when we're talking about fractions and decimals, because that's really what we're going to be doing this week a lot, is converting fractions into decimals, decimals into fractions, and really getting into some percents and ratios as well and converting them and comparing them. So it's really important that you have an understanding of that. So again, if you do not understand that, or if you struggle with that from elementary school, and it's not a big deal if you do, but if you do, you need to talk to me so that I can help you, because I can give you a number chart real easily, and that would just be a nice refresher for you. Because why struggle if you don't have to? So, okay, let's scroll back down here then. The first example, the first things that we're going to talk about is converting fractions into decimals. And there's 2 ways to do that. There is a harder way and there's an easier way, and you need to know how to do both. So I am going to expect you to do both on your assignment. So I'm going to teach you both ways, and I do want you to know both ways. The first way is doing it through equivalent fractions. And essentially what that means is that you are going to create, taking a fraction, and you're going to create a denominator of 100. Or of a fraction that you would know how to easily convert into a decimal. So for example, we have those fractions that we know a lot about, that we've talked about before, like 1/4. We know that 1/4 is 0.25. Okay? And if you don't, you might want to write that down over here in this space that you have. We also know that 1/2 is 0.5, right? And we know that 3/4 is 0.75. We've talked about that many, many times, okay? Those fractions are fractions that you just know. You may also know that 1/5 is 0.20. Some of you may know that. You may then know that 2/5 is going to be 0.40. and 3/5 is going to be 0.60, and 4/5 is going to be 0.80. Those are some common fractions that you're going to come across. So if you know those conversions of those fractions, then you don't need to create an equivalent fraction with a base of 100 or with a base of 10. If you don't, then you do have to create an equivalent fraction. And some of those I do not accept. You know, I'm very picky about what I think you know and what you don't know. So I am pretty confident in what a 7th grader knows. And my expectation is that if it's not a common fraction like the ones that we talked about, then I want to see the equivalent fractions, okay? So when I say equivalent fractions, it means like in this first example, we have the fraction 74 over 100, okay? Our number system's based on 10, and because of that, our decimal system's also based on 10. So you want to make sure that when you're writing fractions, your denominator, when you're creating equivalent fractions, your denominator is going to have a base of either 10, 100, 1,000, 10,000, etc. because our decimals are based on those numbers. So you need to look at your denominator. That's the key number you're going to look at. And you want to make sure that that has one of those numbers in it, 10, 100, 1,000, 10,000. And for the majority of our situations, they're going to be 10 or 100. So this example, 74 over 100, does already have a denominator of 100. So you can then change this easily into the decimal because it's 74 hundredths. We know that that is 0.74 because that is 74 hundredths, okay? Because this is in the hundredths place. That's where that place value chart comes in. Now, in the second example, 7 over 20, okay? That's not, does not have a denominator of a 10, 100, 1,000, whatever. So you need to convert that into a fraction that you know. So to do that, you want to make that 20 100. You're not going to make it a 10. You're not going to make it smaller. You always want to go bigger. You don't want to go smaller. So you want to make that 20 100. So you're going to create an equivalent fraction, just like we were doing when we were adding fractions the other day. So 20, what did I do to 20 to make it 100? I multiplied it by 5. So then whatever I do to my denominator, I need to do the same thing to my numerator. So what am I going to do to 7? I'm going to multiply it by 5. 5 times 7 is 35. So that's my equivalent fraction, but I'm not done yet because now I need to turn this equivalent fraction into a decimal. So that would be 0.35 or 35 hundredths. Now in example number 3, this is taking a mixed number. You have 5 and 3/4. Now all that means is you have the whole number 5 plus the fraction 3/4. So for now, we're just going to hold off on dealing with that whole number, and we're going to work on that fraction 3/4. Now 3/4 is one of those fractions that we talked about. 3/4 is one of those fractions that are one of those common fractions. 3/4 we know is 0.75. So that means that 0.75 plus 5 is going to be our decimal. 5 plus 0.75 is 5.75. So that would be our answer. Okay? All right, so what I want, and one of the other things that I want to talk to you too about is if a fraction or if a decimal is negative, and in this case we're talking about converting fractions into decimals. If a fraction is negative, it stays negative as a decimal. If it starts negative, it stays negative. If it starts positive, it stays positive. So if this example would have been a negative 5 3/4 here, it would stay a negative 5.75. So on your answer, if you forget to move that decimal, that negative sign down there, you're going to lose points, okay? Because that is part of your answer. So if you don't move that down, you are going to lose points. So don't forget to do that, okay? All right, so let's go down, scroll down. I'll erase this. You look down at the bottom of your page. We're going to go through some of those example problems. I think I'm going to do the first one with you, and then I'm going to have you do the others. And pause your computer. So let's look at A. A is 3/10. Now that's simple because our fraction is 10, right? So that already is a power of 10. So 3/10 could be easily written then as 0.3, right? So your answer for A is 0.3. Okay, pause your computer and you do B and C, and then come back and see if you got them right. 3 over 25. So to do 3 over 25, you have to figure out, what am I going to do to 25 to make it be 100, right? What am I going to do to 25 to make it be 100? I'm going to multiply 25 times 4. So what am I going to do to 3 to make it be 100? I'm going to multiply that times 4. So that would be 12. 12 over 100. 12 over 100 is 12 hundredths, 0.12. C is a negative 6 1/2. Well, that is a negative 6 plus 1/2. Well, we know 1/2 is 0.5 plus a negative 6. A negative 6 plus 0.5 is a negative 6.5. Those should be your answers. If you got those right, you can go on with your video. If you didn't, please go back and re-watch it to make sure that you understand it before you come back to class. And then you can turn the page to page 265. And it's taking a long time for my computer. Okay. The next part of this assignment is pretty easy, actually. This is the simple part, the easy, the shortcut. This is division. I do not expect you to show me long division. That's not my expectation. You learned that in 5th grade. You did it in 6th grade. I don't want to see it in 7th grade. That's calculation. You can do that in a calculator. Okay, I don't expect to see that. I don't need to see it. What I do need you to do, though, is to show me how you're getting the answer. So in this first example, you're going to be taking a fraction and you're going to be converting it into a decimal. So you're going to take the fraction 3 over 8, and in order to convert that into a decimal, you're going to divide 3 divided by 8, which when dividing 3 divided by 8, you're going to get the decimal 0.375. Okay? Same thing with this one. This is a negative 1 over 40. That means you're going to divide 1 divided by 40, okay, which is going to be, when you divide that out, it's going to be 0.0225, but it starts out negative, so it needs to stay negative, okay? So these are a lot easier, a lot easier. So if you scroll down and go to the examples, oops. I want you to do examples D, E, F, and G. Pause your computer and do D, E, F, and G, and then I will go through the answers. Okay, so D, -7/8. -7/8 is 7 divided by 8. 7 divided by 8 is 0.875. It starts out negative, so it stays negative. The next problem, E, is 2 1/8. That is 2 plus, and then whatever you get for 1 divided by 8. 1 divided by 8 is 0.125. So it's 2 plus 0.125. So that's 2.125. That should be your answer for E. F is a -3/11. So that's 3 divided by 11. When you get 3 divided by 11, you end up with a repeating decimal, 0.272727, ... When we write repeated decimals, you know that you have to use bar notation. So that's going to be 0.27 with a line over it. But it starts out negative, so it should stay negative. So your answer is 0.27 with a line over it. If you don't use that bar notation, and a negative sign, if you don't use that bar notation, you're going to lose points. And if you don't have that negative sign, you're going to lose points. 8 1/3 is 8 plus 1/3. So that's that's 1 divided by 3. And in that handy dandy calculator, that's going to come out as 0.3333 repeating. Okay? So writing that as a repeating decimal, that's going to be 0.3 with a line over it. My smartboard now is acting funny, so I can't write that down. So it'd be 0.3 with a line over the 3. And then you can move on to the next. No, it's okay. So it's going to be 8.3 with a line over it, and that would be your answer. Okay? All right, let's look at the next page. At the top of this page is a word problem. And in this word problem, it asks you to convert. It talks about converting decimals into fractions now. So now you're going the other way. Okay, so it's going to be a little bit more challenging. So it talks about, it says, find the fraction of fish in the aquarium that are goldfish. So in this first one, they have goldfish are 0.15. So that 0.15 is, we say that as 15/100, okay? But we need to simplify that because these need to be in simplest form. So 15/100, you have to ask yourself what number can go into 15 and into 100 to make it smaller. And the number that can go into both is 5. So you're going to divide your numerator and your denominator by 5 to get your answer. 5 goes into 15 3 times, and 5 goes into 100 20 times. So your answer would be 3/20. So now you have to do Molly, guppy, and angelfish. Molly is 0.2. So 0.2 is 2/10, right? So that's 2/10. But we need to simplify that. What number can go into both 2 and into 10? Well, it's easy. 2 can go into both. 2 goes into 2 1 time, and 2 goes into 10 5 times. Okay? Now you do I and J by yourself. Pause your computer, do I and J, and then come back. Okay, I. Guppy. Guppy is 25/100. So that's 0.25 or 25/100. Well, simplifying 0.25, we know that that is 1/4. Or you can say, okay, how many times does 25 go into 100? 1 time. And how many times does 25 go into 25 1 time? How many times does 25 go into 100? That's 4 times. So that would be 1/4. You also might already know that 0.25 from before, that 0.25 equals 1/4. Angelfish. Angelfish is 0.4. So that is 4/10. 4/10. Now we can simplify that because 2 can go into both. 2 goes into 4 2 times. 2 goes into 10 5 times. So that's our answers. If you got any of those wrong, please go back. If not, I would like you to, if you got any of those wrong, go back, rewatch the video. If you didn't, then you can move on. I want you to do for tomorrow numbers 1, 2, 3, and 4 on your guided practice. Number 1 needs to be done like example 1, using equivalent fractions. Number 2, you can do any way that you want, using decimals or equivalent fractions. And number 3, you need to do using division. And then 4 is like this word problem that we just did. Okay, so bring that back, finish with you when you come back tomorrow. Have a good day.